First of all, I just want to start off by saying it's an absolute honor and a pleasure to be here. A big thank you to Jamie Straz and Rabbi Reuven Glucksman who put a lot of effort into this program every single week, every single day actually. I get texts and calls from Jamie all the time, pushing the program to make sure it's a success. It's not often that you get to see a program that grows not only in quantity but also in quality, so I'm honored to be able to be the guest speaker. Actually, I heard that nobody else wanted to do it, and they ended up with the last person willing to speak in Miami. But we'll try to entertain anyways. So we're on Rosh Chodesh Kislev. And we were going to speak a little bit about Hanukkah, and I think that's what the theme is we're going to go with tonight. A little bit of a different approach than what the title was. Just a little bit of a background on what Hanukkah, really the storyline is. You know, when we come to different Yom Tovim, different holidays throughout the calendar year, we often follow the practices of the holiday, right? We'll light the menorah, we'll shake the lulav and esrog, we'll sit in the sukkah, we'll eat the matzah, but we often forget what the symbolism behind those practices are and what they really try to draw out from us in our relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So the story goes, in the year 166 BCE, the Jewish people living in the land of Israel during the Second Temple, Antiochus, the Syrian Greek king, is trying to conquer Eretz Yisrael, trying to take it away from the Jewish people and destroy the temple. And we all know the storyline with Judah the Maccabee and his father and his brothers, that they fought back against Antiochus and they reclaimed the temple. They came in on Chaf Hei Kislev, which is the 25th of Kislev, and they found one jug of pure olive oil that was not tampered with. The seal of the Kohen Gadol still remained. They used that jug of olive oil to light the menorah, and instead of it lasting for just one night, which is what each jug should last for, it lasted for 8 days. And therefore, every year we celebrate for 8 days, the beginning of Chaf Hei Kislev, the holiday of Hanukkah. The Maharal asks a fascinating question, and he says as follows. If you look at the Gemara's approach as to the reasoning for why we celebrate Hanukkah, the Gemara asks, why do we celebrate this holiday? What is this holiday all about? And the Gemara focuses on the fact that the Jewish people were able to come back to the temple and that they were able to find one pure jug of oil and that they were able to light the menorah. The Gemara doesn't focus on the fact that the Jewish people were outnumbered in battle. They had a total of 6,000 men. I was actually looking it up in Rav Beryl Wine's history books. He brings down everything. It's fantastic how he brings everything down. And they had 6,000 men at the epitome, at the climax of what they were able to gather together to fight against the entire Greek-Syrian army. But yet the Gemara doesn't focus on that as the reason for why we celebrate Hanukkah. Rather, the Gemara focuses on the reason for celebrating Hanukkah is simply because when they finally won the war, we came back to the temple and we found this one jug of oil and we were able to light the menorah. So the question I want to deal with tonight is, how is it that we find ourselves celebrating a holiday because we found one jug of oil, and it seems to be that we're avoiding the actual miracle that took place, the war itself. The Jews were outnumbered. There was no reason for us to win that battle. Strategically, we were completely outnumbered. And yet the Gemara focuses on this jug of oil. We read in Al Anisim how the days of Hanukkah are Yemei Hodos Ulahalo. They're days of giving thanks and they're days of giving praise to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Right? It's interesting the way that the Al Anisim describes the entire storyline of Hanukkah, it's also Al Anisim, but describes the entire storyline of Hanukkah and says, and therefore, because of these miracles, we are led upon the days of the Hodos Ulahalo, to give thanks and to give praise. So I was thinking about it actually last week, because we had Thanksgiving and we all indulged in a little bit too much turkey and stuffing. But I was thinking about it, I was thinking, what does it mean to be thankful? And what does that have to do with the holiday of Hanukkah? Why is Hanukkah Yemei Hodos Ulahalo, which we don't have by any other holiday? We have Hallel by some other holidays, but we don't have this idea of being Hodah, this idea of being thankful. By Pesach, we don't find that we have a special... God takes us out of Egypt. He frees the Jewish people, brings us towards the land of Israel, gives us the Torah. We don't find this theme of being thankful. So I was thinking about what thankful. What does it really mean to give Hodah to HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Maybe we can tie it in with, even though Thanksgiving is a secular holiday, I am of the opinion that you should take that opportunity really and try to see how you can be thankful in your own life. So when we look at the Torah and we find the first time that the word Hodah is used, the first time that someone is being thankful in the Torah, we find it by Leah. Leah, when she has her fourth child, she says, and now that I had my fourth child, I've decided I'm going to be thankful to God, and I'm going to name him Yehuda, coming from the word Hodah, to be thankful. So the question is, why is it that when Leah has her fourth child, does she decide now is the time to be thankful? She had 3 children before. Is that a sense of gratitude that you feel towards HaKadosh Baruch Hu? He gives you, you make your first million. Beautiful. Second, third, something hopefully we can all relate to one day. No, but when we get to that 4th million, now I'm going to be thankful to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So much so, she names her child Yehuda after being thankful. It almost seems like she ignored Hashem in the first 3. The Gemara in Brachos Daf Zayin says that until Leah came about and named her child Yehuda, from the beginning of the creation of the world, there had never been one person that was modeh, not one person ever gave thanks to Hashem. Fascinating Gemara. The Gemara is saying that from Adam to Avram, to Yitzchak, to Yaakov, nobody ever gave thanks in the Torah until Leah came about and named her son Yehuda. How is that possible? Noach gets out of the Teva. The first thing that he does, he gives a korban odah to Hashem. We know Adam Rishon, right? That first Shabbos, Tov lahodos LaHashem. He writes the Perek in Tehillim, thanking Hashem for the opportunity of Shabbos. So how can the Gemara tell us that until Leah has come about, until Leah names her son Yehuda, there has never been this understanding of Hodah, this understanding of being thankful in the world? Everybody with me? So far, so good? Okay. The Midrash Rabbah says that it's hard to understand the storyline with Leah and Hashem, right? Basically asking the same questions we already said. How could it be that she wasn't thankful until now? How could it be that anybody wasn't thankful until now? And the Midrash Rabbah explains that it's similar to a story of where someone goes over to a Kohen, right? We all know there's Truma, the tithings that you have to give over to the Kohen. And he goes over to a Kohen that he doesn't usually give Truma to. Right? He has his specific Kohen. It used to be everybody had a friend who was a Kohen, and he would always give his Truma over to that Kohen. And this gentleman goes over to this Kohen who he doesn't usually give his Truma over to, and he gives him a handful of wheat, and he says, you know what, I'm going to give you Truma this time. And that Kohen starts praising this person. He starts thanking him. Wow, I'm so grateful for what you've done for me. You've given me this handful worth of grain. You've helped me so much I can afford to feed my family. And he goes on and on and on, and he's praising this gentleman. A minute later, comes another individual who usually is accustomed to giving this particular Kohen. He goes up to him, and he backs up an 18-wheeler truck and gives him his usual tithing, a whole truckload worth of wheat. And the Kohen says, Shkayach. So he looks at the Kohen and he says, I don't understand. This guy gives you a handful worth of wheat, and you're praising him for the longest period of time. I myself, who give you Truma all the time, and every time I give you Truma, the value is far more than his, and yet you don't bother to praise me for more than 1 minute? And the Kohen looks at him and he says, the truth is I expect to get the Truma from you, because you always give it to me. I feel like I deserve it. This individual, I know he has another Kohen. I know he always gives it to someone else. And I know that now he's giving it to me. He's doing me a favor, a tova. He's helping me out by giving me, even though it's of less value, but it's coming from a place where he's doing something that he doesn't need to do. And therefore, I am grateful, and therefore I am thankful to this person far greater than I am to you. The Midrash Rabbah says it's similar to the storyline with Leah. All the Amos, all of the matriarchs of Judaism knew that Jacob was going to have 12 tribes. And they knew that there were 4 wives. They knew that if you divide 12 by 4, everybody's getting 3 children. So Leah knows she's deserving of these 3 children. But she didn't expect anything more from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. She didn't expect anything more from God. But when God grants her that 4th child, now she looks at Hashem and she says, before I was thankful, don't think that I wasn't. But now I realize that the things you do for me are not because I'm deserving, not because I happen to be one of 4, but because you care about me, you give me things even though I may not be deserving of them. And therefore she names her son Yehuda. And therefore she says to Hashem, now I can finally be thankful. So let's take a step back. Maybe we can get to identify what it means to really be thankful. The Gemara tells us that nobody was ever thankful from the beginning of creation until Leah named her son Yehuda. It doesn't mean that nobody ever gave thanks. But nobody was ever able to give the thanks in an altruistic level where they understood that it's something they don't deserve, and yet Hashem still gave them that opportunity. But Leah knew that. Adam, Chava, Yaakov, Avram, Yitzchak. Was it coming to them? Was it not? They didn't know if they were supposed to get that, or maybe they did. But here she knew she wasn't deserving of it. So for the first time in the Torah, we can define that giving thanks means we have to understand that it's something that we don't deserve, and yet we're granted. We have to think that every time we get something in our lives, it's an opportunity from HaKadosh Baruch Hu that we're not deserving of. But if we have that mindset, then we can be truly thankful. The story of Hanukkah is fascinating. You know, there's been many times that the Jewish people have gone to war and they've been outnumbered. And in all actuality, when you go to war with someone, even though the percentages can be against you and all odds are against you, it's still possible you can win a war. Right? Throughout all of history, there have always been battles, both Jewish and non-Jewish, where the lesser overcame the greater, where the weaker overcame the stronger. That's something that can be in the hands of men. If we can fight and we're granted the opportunity, we can achieve that. So maybe that's something that, not that we deserve, but something that God leaves to us, gives us that opportunity to achieve. But God, he puts a message in the story of Hanukkah, and he says as follows. He says, in the war, yes, the war was all you, right? I enabled you, I gave you the power. If you cared about it enough and you fought for it and you won, that's for you. But we come back to our home, we come back to the temple, and we find the jug of oil. What's interesting is that in Gemara, there's a concept that Tumah is hutra b'tzibur. That if you need to do one of the practices in the temple, not all, but the menorah is one of those that you can. If everybody is considered to be tameh, meaning that nobody is spiritually pure, and you can't find any oil that is with the seal, that is spiritually pure, it's permissible, it's just as good, it's perfectly fine to use a jug of oil that doesn't have the seal, that is completely metameh. So we see that Hashem did something, a miracle by which we celebrate the entire holiday for something we didn't even need. We could have simply taken a jug of oil that didn't have the seal on it. But the Jewish people understood that this was something they didn't deserve. They didn't deserve the opportunity to be given by God to fulfill the commandments in its greatest level. But Hashem says, I want to express complete love to you. I don't want you to just think that I helped you in a war. I want you to know I went above and beyond. I want you to know I gave you things that you don't deserve. And the reason you're in this state right now where nothing else is tahor, nothing else is pure, is because of you. But you know what? Still, I'm going to put you in a state where you can fulfill the mitzvah in the greatest level. So Hanukkah is the storyline of God giving us the opportunity to have things that we don't deserve. And that's precisely why it's the storyline of giving thanks. Because Hanukkah is the time where we can realize that I shouldn't have had this jug of oil. I should have had another. I shouldn't have had any at all. But God is symbolizing to us, He's showing to us that that's what the storyline of Hanukkah is. And that's why it's such a fantastic and such a great relationship that we can have with Hashem. And if you think about the psychology of being thankful. I had an opportunity to see some of this over last week at the Young Israel of Bell Harbor. And there was an individual there that's a psychologist, and he was going through how he feels, right? He was just telling me all these studies and a lot of fancy 5-syllable words that I'm not familiar with. And he was just telling me how being thankful is the greatest opportunity in a relationship. Because let's say Jamie does a favor for me. Jamie, by the way, is always doing favors for me. But Jamie does a favor for me. I can't possibly pay him back. But I have the opportunity to be thankful to Jamie. I can approach Jamie and I can tell him, Jamie, I want to thank you so much for what you've done. That creates a bond. That creates a relationship. I cannot pay him back. But what I can do is I can be thankful. I can recognize that what he did for me is something that he didn't have to do. And that bond with HaKadosh Baruch Hu is something that's so powerful that He enables us to be thankful to Him. Because we can't repay back Hashem. And it's a chesed, the fact that we can even be thankful. It's a kindness. But He enables us to do that. And He does that precisely in the story of Hanukkah. I want to say over a fascinating story that I heard. And I do believe that the story is actually true because I spoke to the person that said it over and he claims to have heard it firsthand. So there's an individual by the name of Aaron Green. Aaron Green was a young boy during the Holocaust. And unfortunately, he was separated from his parents, and he believed that his entire family was wiped out. Grew up religious in a European shtetl. And when he came to America, he decided that he wanted to have nothing to do with Judaism. He felt that actually the entire war was because the Jews were religious, and he wanted to ensure in his children and in future generations that they should be everything but a good Jew. Anyways, Aaron realized shortly after that if you want to do that, you can't live anywhere near the tri-state area because everybody's Jewish and they're out to get you and make you Jewish also. So Aaron decides he's moving out to the Midwest. He wants to be as far away from Orthodox Jewry as possible. Aaron moves, Minnesota, the middle of nowhere. And he finds himself going through the stages of life. He gets married, has a son, marries a Jewish girl anyways. And eventually, Aaron finds himself becoming very, very successful in business, very, very well-to-do. He has some sort of empire. He's made a fortune for himself. And Aaron's son is getting older now, and his son turns 13. So, not being religious, he decides he's not going to be doing a bar mitzvah for his son, but being that he's so wealthy and he feels that that's an age where, he's starting to become a man, he wants to take his son to go and get him a gift on his birthday. He wants to spend a lot of money, wants to invest, wants his son to feel like he's really doing him a good one. So he takes his son to the largest toy store. What's the one in Manhattan? He takes him to the... Yeah, okay. I never got to go there as a kid. We had tough times. But anyways, he takes him, he flies him all the way. They go from Minnesota, they go all the way down to Manhattan. And he takes his son into this large store. And he calls over the manager and he says, my name is Aaron Green, and I'm this and this. And obviously his name was recognizable. He was well-to-do. And he says, I want you to have an assistant walk around the store with my son. And whatever it is that he wants to purchase, let him buy it. But he can only have one item. Anyways, the kid is going with the assistant is pushing the cart, the kid sees a set of Lego, puts it in the cart, goes to the next thing, sees something of a higher price, takes the Lego out, puts in the next item, then he's got this station, then he's got that gaming system, and he's going through the entire store. 3 hours are going by, and this kid is he's moving up and up and up. You know, he's going for the most expensive item, and he's going for something that he really thinks he's going to appreciate. And they go to pay. Finally, Aaron's son decides what he wants to purchase. And as they're going to the counter, his kid starts to feel a little bit guilty. He's thinking to himself, and he actually speaks it out to his father, and he says, "Dad, I don't know if I'm really going to ever use this." You know, but he was a smart kid. Again, even though he grew up non-religious, still a Jewish kid, he said, maybe we'll just do cash value. Let's do that, you know? I'll just take cash value for the item. So his father's saying, no, I want you to have something that you're going to use, that you're going to remember that on this day we purchased. And they come to the counter of this store, and the boy sees that across the street there seems to be a nicer store. Something with shiny artifacts in the window, something that looks beautiful, something that's appealing to the eye, and he immediately catches his attention, and he decides, he tugs his father on his shirt, and he says, "Dad, I think we should go across the street." So his father's looking at the item in the cart, realizes that he has this assistant here. He spent 3 hours for no reason, looks at the manager, and he says, "I apologize. If you'd like, I'd purchase the item anyways or give you cash value, but I'm going to take my son across the street." Okay, he wanted to give his son a gift. So he takes his son across the street, and as he's walking there, he realizes that this is a luxurious antique shop. So he's thinking, what could his 13-year-old son possibly want to purchase from an antique shop? So he's getting a little bit nervous about how much he's going to be spending. But anyways, they go into this antique shop, and his son is walking up and down throughout the shop. And the curator, don't touch anything. He's not touching anything, but he's looking at all these fancy chandeliers, all these expensive jewelry, and he's going through the entire store. And it may be this. His father's looking at the price tag, getting a little nervous, but he's going through and through the store. And finally, this boy looks at the side of the store in the storefront window, the very corner, and he sees that there is what seems to be a menorah. A wooden menorah, cracked, destroyed, barely standing, barely one piece. And he goes over to his father and he says, "You know what, I want to have this menorah." So his father, thinking to himself, what kind of mess did he just get into? His only son wants to go purchase a menorah. He spent his entire lifetime trying to run away from that. So he tries to persuade his son. He tries to convince him not to purchase the menorah. And his son is bothering him. "Dad, look, I came in the store. We spent the whole day. We flew out here. This is what I want." And he threw a nice Yiddish kinder type of fit. And he's going crazy. And he's in the middle of the fancy store. And his father feels like he can afford it anyways. So he starts to bargain with the person. The person realizing that he has to purchase it. Being an antique shop, no set price. He's bargaining back and forth. Finally, Aaron Green finds himself putting $10,000 down on an old, decrepit menorah that seems to be 100 and something years old, that he feels like he could have put one together better himself. And he walks out of the store, and it's boxed. They get on a plane, they fly home, and he goes to his house. Aaron's son takes the menorah, puts it on the highest shelf in his bedroom, and he's looking at it and he's in love. And Aaron's thinking a million ways how he's got to get rid of this menorah before this kid decides maybe we should find out what it exactly is. And while Aaron is in his living room, Aaron hears a big bang, as if something hit the floor and shattered into a million pieces. So he gets nervous. Aaron runs upstairs to see what's going on, and he sees his kid is on the floor and his son is crying. And he realizes that this menorah had suddenly fell off the top shelf and it shattered into a million pieces. And Aaron himself feels very, very guilty. He feels bad. He feels bad because he spent so much money, but he feels bad because this is what his son really wanted. And he sees his kid crying on the floor and crying, and he says, "Don't worry, we'll get another one." And his kid is just screaming back, "No, this is the one I wanted. This is what my 13-year-old birthday gift was. Dad, this is what you got for me. We were supposed to bond over this for years." And he's just crying. So Aaron's not the handiest man, but he gets on his knees and he says, "Look, maybe we can put it back together. We'll get some super glue, get a few screws. At least it'll be a project, something we'll remember, something that even though it fell apart, we can piece it back together." And Aaron begins to pick up the pieces with his son when a note falls out of one of the stems of the menorah. Aaron looks at the note and he begins to read. And immediately after reading the note, Aaron falls on the floor and has a heart attack. They call the ambulance. A group of people come in. They resuscitate him. They get him back. Everything's good. He's brought to the hospital. He's alive. And they ask him, what was it that was so amazing that you read on that letter that caused you to have such a panic, a raise in blood pressure that caused you to have a heart attack? And he says, I happen to still be able to read Yiddish. I grew up in a nice European home. I can read Yiddish. So he says, give me that letter. I'm going to read the letter to you. So I wrote down a copy, almost word for word. Again, it's translated loosely from German. And Aaron is reading this letter to everyone in the hospital. At this point in time, he's surrounded by doctors and nurses. They're amazed. Well, what could have happened? His son is there. His wife is there. His entire family, co-workers. And Aaron begins to read as follows. To whomever finds this menorah, I want you to know that I constructed this not knowing if I will ever have the chance to light it. Who knows if I will ever see the day that it will be kindled by another? And even if I do get the opportunity myself to light it on the very first night of Hanukkah, who knows if I will have the opportunity to light it on the second? In all probability, going through the war, I will not. But if by chance Hashem brings this menorah to your hands, you who are reading this letter, promise me, and I mean promise me, that you will light it forever. Light it for me, light it for my family, and light it for those who gave their lives to serve God. And the letter was signed David Green, the father of this Aaron Green, of this gentleman. So shocked by the opportunity that God put in front of him, Aaron began to find out more and more, to connect to his roots, decided he wanted to become a religious Jew. And sure enough, that simple gift, not knowing on his 13-year-old child's birthday, he ended up making his child a few months later a full-fledged bar mitzvah. And he said he was given such an opportunity that he feels that he didn't deserve. And that's what caused him such a bond with God. And he said, I have to return. But the lesson of Hanukkah is that we don't just need to find a menorah in a shop when we were looking for something else. And we don't just have to have things put into our lives that are tremendous opportunities, that are not 1 in a million, that are not 1 in a billion, not 1 in a trillion chances, that a menorah would be found from the Holocaust, placed in the perfect store that happens to be that of this man's father. But our entire life is filled with these opportunities. Things that we may not deserve, but they're placed before us each and every day, each and every moment. God gives us that opportunity to connect. And He gives us that opportunity to thank Him for it. So this Hanukkah, when we begin to celebrate, have that in mind. Understand that the things that were given, we may not deserve, but they were given to us as a kindness from God. And be thankful for them. And engage in that bonding with Hashem, that opportunity to receive and that opportunity to be thankful for it. That's what Hanukkah is all about. It's all about that one little jug of oil that really we may not have deserved, but we had that opportunity. Thank you, and I think we're going to begin with...